Good morning to everyone and very welcome. I'm Elena Alessandra and I have recently started to collaborate with the UNESCO Chair at Ca' Foscari University in Venice. And so also I will collaborate with the global network of water museums. So thank you for being here today, and I'm very glad to have the chance of introducing you Prof. Wantzen and Dr. Yixin Cao. Professor Wantzen is passionate for nature and water, and since his earliest childhood, he studied animals and plants that live in the rivers, lakes, and in the ocean. He holds a chair in applied aquatic ecology at the University of Tours in France, which has been honored as a UNESCO Chair on the River Culture since 2014. Apart from more than 100 publications, he has recently edited a book entitled River Culture, Life as a Dance to the Rhythm of the Waters. This book have involved more than 100 authors, precisely 125 from 24 different countries, and report how people live with their rivers all over the world, and conceptualize a new international master course on the independent problem solving in river management at the Strasbourg University. Dr. Yixin Cao is a PhD student at the University of Tours, also in France, and she works under Professor Wantzen's supervision. Her thesis is studying urban rivers as social ecological system and how they help drive and shape human-nature interaction and reconnect urban inhabitants to the biosphere. She specifically focused on the case studies in France and China. She has working experience in China, Japan, and Netherlands. So thank you again, and the floor is yours.
Okay. Then I will share my screen.
Yes, now we can see.
Yep. You can see it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Elena and Heriberto, for this kind introduction. So today we are talking about human-river relationships, and Yixin will later present an online tool aiming to learn about visitors of water museums and understand emotional relations with water bodies and waterscapes. I would like to introduce first a little bit the work of the UNESCO Chair Fleuve et Patrimoine, which I'm holding since 2014 and which has recently been renewed. For us, it is very important to support international cooperation and the North-South-South dialogue. I've been living for 8 years in Brazil. I have a very strong relationship to Latin America, but more recently also with the other tropical areas in the continents. The focus of our work is more on solving problems rather than on claiming about them. So we are working on different practical issues like riverscape management, dam removal, restoration of riverbanks, and different aspects of urban waters, specifically stream daylighting, so to bring up streams that have been buried into canalization years ago, but also creating encounter sites between humans and rivers and lakes, and that is what Yixin will detail a little bit further. The river culture concept is an inter- and transdisciplinary approach to bring harmony between humans and rivers and lakes. It is based on human traditional strategies, but also on biological adaptive strategies. I will show a slide soon after. And the current work on the book was to analyze all over the world the drivers of biological and cultural diversity, but also the menaces to them, and to the options to recover them and to integrate them into modern or sustainable river basin management. And we are currently planning a new master course at University of Strasbourg, where we will invert the principles of lecturing. We will not go from discipline to discipline, but rather the focus will be on the problem. And then a kind of portfolio of specialists, from students to lecturers, will focus on this problem and work together. So the river culture concept has 5 principal tenets. The first is to revise values, so not to see the water just as an asset for navigation or for irrigation or cooling water, but rather to bring this together in a holistic view and put the value of the intact socio-ecosystem as the highest value and not the profit that we can take out when we sell a part of it. Return to a life in the rhythm of the waters. We just have published a paper on the rhythms of the water and their socio-ecological importance to structuring life, for watery placemaking, and so on. And we can apply 2 different strategies to achieve this. The first is look on traditional ecological knowledge and societies that have been living or are still living in this rhythm, that are not afraid of floods and droughts, but they live with them and they use them to give a rhythm into their lives. The other is look at the biology, at the organisms that have specific strategies to escape from floods or to use the flood pulse advantage. And there is still a lot of knowledge that we have not identified yet, because we cannot speak directly to aquatic insects, for example, but we can do this with research. And the final point is called bassin de responsabilité. This means that the river has to be the center of the territories in which we are doing landscape policies and not the border anymore. And also in conservation, aquatic water bodies have to go into the center and not at the margin of reserves. The book that is just being studied in for press at Paris, UNESCO Publishing, it really asks, how are you living with your river? And as you can see here from these numbers, we have many different case studies. And it is now our questions is how and under which socio-environmental conditions people are being engaged with their rivers. It depends a little bit on the social engagement, participative aspects. We have to combine the problems and the social sphere and the solution sphere in these. And the people that are working with me, my 4 PhD students, Yixin Cao, who will soon after talk, is preparing the urban rivers in China and in France. Then Raita Bala is working on the Congo River at Kinshasa, and she will also participate in this Chinese meeting in some days and present the Congo River there. Alvin Vasail is currently in India, in Kerala, where we have highly specific forms of interactions between governance and the local people and education. Very interesting, and we try to transfer this knowledge from one place in the world to another. That's the North-South-South dialogue. And Xiaozhong Tan, also Chinese, is working on the design of urban lakes to the benefit of humans and non-human biota. Now I would like to come to the point of what we would like to achieve today with the question, what is subcutaneous environmental education? So to say, a kind of environmental education that you do not precisely feel. It is not working with notice boards or lifted fingers. It is rather the non-factual channels of perceptions. So work with feelings, with impressions, with curiosity and enchantment, the aesthetics and the beauty of nature that directly act with us, but also the soundscape, for example. So we should provide a kind of invisible chain from this raising attention and raising curiosity to the interest and then to care. So it's a pathway, it's like a spider web that is going from somewhere in the city and leading to the water museums and other institutions of education. So to make the people curious and want to know more, and then as soon as they are engaged with nature, also take action in favor of nature. And the entry channels, how we can appeal the people, how we can make them curious, should be as diverse as the different personalities of the audience. Audience means audiere, it means to listen, but it's not only to listen, but it can also be a soundscape. So an attractive environment or the absence of noise. It can be a certain microclimate as we can produce it near water bodies. It can be aspects of aesthetics, observation places for nature, or the relaxation, and the people should feel well and then interest and ask, why do I feel well? It's the intact nature, or it's a curiosity that makes me feel better, and then ask more. And the educative objects that we use, they can be highly different. They can be very small or very big. I have shown here on the upper right corner these Stolpersteine. These are elements of not museums, but showing how victims of the Holocaust, where they have been living, people are starting to remind them. We have similar things with streams at the moment, like windows to buried streams where a full restoration is not possible, or the names of streets that remind that at this place there was a fish market. The fish market was because there were fish in the river in the past, and maybe people want to get them back. We can work with artwork, we can work with events, urban parks, and blue-green networks. But first of all, we need to know what does connect people with nature. And that is what Yixin is now going to present in her questionnaire. I have just, you can later on download this presentation, some homepages and some links to recent publications on the river culture concept and on these human river encounter sites, so that you can know more. And of course, we are available today and also in the future for your questions. Thank you very much. And now I let Yixin talk about the human river encounter sites in cities. Please, Yixin.
Yes, thank you for introducing me. So I'm going to shortly talk about urban human river encounter sites, which is a concept, and the paper has been published also early this year. So this means that we should create the sites that human meet the river, enjoying it without harming it. So this idea of human river encounter site has practically 6 principles, including health, safety, functionality, awareness, and collaboration. And with this questionnaire, we want to study these sites in different cultural contexts. And it's a first step to understand how people see their rivers in their cities. And so here comes to the aim of this public survey. First is to understand human relationships with the river, how people perceive, interact, and evaluate the river in their cities. And second, help build human river encounter sites in the city. This refers to practical suggestions for decision makers specifically, how to manage urban rivers to provide multiple benefits, not only for humans, but also for other species. And the third is to possibly have a comparative study with cross-cultural analysis by distributing this questionnaire and collecting the data within the global network of water museums. So I think next we will give the floor to all the participants to shortly, briefly self-introduce themselves and how you expect from today's webinars. And each have 3 minutes, 5 minutes maximum, I think.
So
yes, thank you.
Of course, we are building up this worldwide study step by step, and we begin with the very generic questions, and then we can be more specific. We have also plans, for example, for an interactive film, so that people could practically travel down a river, and when they are interested in a certain part, they can click on it, and then they get the specific information. They get the natural features, but also the human impacts and the traditions of water use and so on. And so they can spend time in this interactive device as long as they want. But this is an early plan that came up during this last Great River Forum, and we haven't developed it any further yet. But we have a lot of ideas, but we do the first step first, and then we will bring it to more regional context. And as Hugo just said, we also have this language issue, and we have to see where are issues that we can generalize. And for example, arts and direct perception of beauty and these things, they are kind of international, intercultural. And then additionally, we have the finer details of it. And we are currently working on a kind of catalog of human-river interactions, and we break it down into the cultural activities, the direct use activities, and so on, and the emotional interactions, spiritual interactions, and so on. And once we have this catalog, we can see which elements of this catalog can be covered in a general feature, and where can we go into further detail only with regional specific work. But this would be highly interesting to see. But as I said, we are still in this basic phase. But I would like to Yixin to present now the questionnaire. Otherwise, we may be running out of time. But thank you very much, Emily, for your presentation.
Okay, thank you. So I might leave now. So see you, everybody.
You can download this presentation by Yixin later on. We will make it a specific download only for this tutorial for the questionnaire.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Goodbye.
Okay, now I'm going to talk about this questionnaire specifically. So I will go through the questionnaire with you and provide some guidance as well as some strategies to distribute the questionnaire in the museums. So firstly, the questionnaire is, we use the platform of ArcGIS Survey 123. It is a tool integrated with the ArcGIS platform. And one of the advantages of this tool is that it can generate spatial information of the participants. So as you can see from the map here, so the surveys submitted will also automatically include the spatial information about where they were submitted. So for now, we have collected more than 30 surveys, and you can see where they were submitted. And also the current version of this questionnaire have multiple language available. For now, we have German, Spanish, Chinese, English, Italian, and French. So you can easily change the language on the top left when you access the questionnaire. And so these available languages have been proofread by native speakers. But if you also find some wordings or information that are not clear in the language you think, and you can send me an email and we can discuss about this. And so to access the questionnaire is quite simple. So firstly, all the data will be collected online. We do not recommend the museum to collect this questionnaire manually, because that would take lots of time, and also there will be lots of work for data entry afterwards. So we recommend you to distribute this questionnaire with the link to the visitors or students or volunteers, etc. So the link has been sent to you, I think, quite a while ago, and the link remains always the same. And you can also see our posters here. The two posters have the QR code. So you can also access the questionnaire by scanning the QR code on the poster. And the questionnaires allows multiple submissions, which means the questionnaire can be completed on different devices as well as on the same devices. And the questionnaire is a little bit long. So if from my experience, if the participants read all the questions carefully, it will take 10 to 15 minutes to complete. And the questionnaire remain anonymous, and the data will be only used for research purpose. We have this information provided in the beginning of the questionnaire. So the content of the questionnaire has mainly 6 parts. And most of the questions are multiple or single choice questions with only a few open questions. But this open questions, all of these open questions are optional, which means if the participants do not want to text in detail, they can skip them over. And the first part of the questionnaire is to identify your closeness to the river. This is composed of multiple and single choice questions, including the question about their living proximity to the river, their visit frequency to the river sites, and their things to do on the riverside. And we also have, I think, 3 or 4 questions about to ask if the pandemic has changed their interactions with the river. And the second part of the questionnaire is about their childhood experience, interaction with the river. So this part is composed of choice questions and an open question. And the choice questions concerns their childhood memories and feelings about the river. And the open question is, what is their most important memory in their childhood connecting the river? And this is also optional, but we also encourage the participants to recall their experience when they were a child about their connection to the river. And the third part is the evaluation and perceptions of the river in your city, in the city that you are currently living. And this part is a little bit complicated. It concerns choice questions, geolocation questions, and an open question of uploading an image from their device. So the choice question is about to value the riverine environment in their living city by negative, positive, or I don't know. And the second question is a list of 15 statements about rivers' socio-ecological impacts. And the participants can choose if they disagree, don't know, or agree with this statement. And the geolocation question is to ask where is your favorite riverside in your city, and to ask them indicate it with geopoints in the map. So the map actually functions just like Google Maps, and the map will display the user's location by default. And they can also type, and they can zoom in or out to find their favorite riverside, and they put a geopoint on it and they submit it. Or they can also type the address in the map, and the map here will find it, and they can also then add geopoints. And next to this question, we have a question to ask the participants upload an image of their favorite riverside. They can either drop image or take a photo with their phone. But these two questions are both optional. If there are technical issues or something they cannot do, they can also skip them over. And to have these photos, the aim is to have content analysis of all these visual images later on, and to see what participants visually want about ideal riversides in the city. And the next part is expectations of urban river restorations. So we have a short definition of urban river restoration in this part. And we have this 4 hypothetic river restoration scenarios, and we ask the participants to score each of them from 1, which means they consider it a failed restoration, to 10, which means they consider it a successful restoration. So as you can see from the 4 different pictures, so those are, all of them are so-called restored riverside, but with different, for example, recreational facilities or natural functions or concrete riverbanks. And this question does not require professional knowledge, but to ask the general public how they evaluate this restoration scenarios, like as a first impression. And the last 2 parts are concerning participation of river management as well as personal characteristics. So the participation of river management is composed of multiple choice questions and an open question, asking about their willingness to participate the management in the city and which type of information as a citizen they want to receive about the river. And the open question is their suggestions for future river management. And the last part is personal characteristics. So we intentionally put these questions about demographic information at the end of the questionnaire, because because to provide this data at the beginning may discourage people to immediately drop out the questionnaire or have any impact on their following answers. So we put this in at the end, and this part concerns gender, age, educational level, monthly incomes with choice questions. So in the next slides, I will also shortly introduce some of my personal experience of doing such public surveys, both here in France as well as in China. So last year, also in October, during the Science Festival here in Tours, we did a very similar public survey with shortened version questionnaire, but also to study how citizens perceive their rivers in Tours, in France. So this questionnaire, we did it manually, and we have this a few tables, and we printed all the questionnaire and then we asked the visitors to fill it out, or we help them to fill it out. And in the end, we collect more than 100 completed answers, and we have some interesting preliminary results showing here. So this is quite a special case because here in Tours, the river Loire actually passed through the city. So people here have a pretty strong attachment to the river. And through our questionnaire, we found that inhabitants actually interact very actively with the river, and they value many aspects of urban riverfront. And but there are also some interesting findings. For example, the primary concern about the riverfront is the rubbish on the riverbank. And most of the participants suggest for future river management is to install waste bins on the riverbank. And this is just some preliminary results, and this paper is now accepted for publication. I hope we can share with you when it's published. And so this summer, I did also a public survey in China with the help of Hong Kong University, which is also my field work for my PhD thesis. And I also want to appreciate Professor Wendy Chen, and I think she's also here today for her help all along. And so this survey is almost the same as the one I just introduced in the Survey 123 platform, but I translated all the questions into Chinese and used another Chinese platform, which is more user-friendly in China. And all the data were collected online. And we have distributed this questionnaire in 3 Chinese water museums: National Water Museum of China in Hangzhou, and Baiheliang Underwater Museum in Chongqing, and Changjiang Civilization Museum in Wuhan. So in the end, we have collected 657 completed answers in total from July to November this year. And this was actually quite successful. I'm now in the process of analyzing all the data collected, but through this experience in China, we also have some practical suggestions for other water museums to distribute or better encourage the visitors to fill out this questionnaire. So firstly, we encourage you to take the poster we already shared with you and print the poster with a QR code. And it's better to put it on the entrance of the museum or some open space in the museum, so people can go and see the QR code and scan it to fill out the questionnaire themselves. And as you can see from the image on the left, this is a poster made by the National Water Museum of China. So it's in Chinese, but it literally says, this is a questionnaire to understand human relationship with river. And if you complete the river successfully, you can get a small gift at the reception table. So we also encourage, if budget allots, the museum can prepare some small gifts for the visitors. From the experience of National Water Museum of China, we prepared this gift stickers as shown in the middle image for visitors who completed the survey, and they can go to the reception table and have this small piece of stickers. And we also encourage, if possible, to have 1 or 2 people assisting the participants to fill out all the questionnaire, because there might be some technical issues or some questions they don't understand. And that's the strategies to collect questionnaires. But I'm also willing to hear from you. What do you think will be more efficient to encourage or engage the participants? And here is the 1-year timetable for this initiative. So we hope to launch this initiative with Water Museum Global Network right away and start distribute the surveys in different water museums and collect data at the same time. And we hope to finish this data collection process by June or July next year. And we will begin to analyze all the data with collaboration with Hong Kong University. And we hope to have the final report written up and present the final results to all of you by the end of next year. And so far we have received some very positive response from some museums, which I just list some examples here. from Ecuador, Belgium, and Italy. So that's also why we have translated the questionnaire into French, Italian, and Spanish. And we are also looking forward more museum to be engaged. And what do you need to do? So firstly, if you want put a poster in the museum, I suggest you translate the poster into your language and add your museum's logo. So I will share the editable file of the poster to all of you, so you can freely change the text on the poster. For example, here we have the Spanish version and Italian poster here. And for the multiple languages, so firstly, we have already 6 languages available for the questionnaire. If the language you are going to use is available on the current version, please try to do the questionnaire yourself and go through each question to see if there's any language errors or unclear information. And you can send me directly an email to modify some text. And if the language you are going to use is not available, please also send me an email, and I will send you an Excel file of all the questions in English. And you please translate them into your language and send me back the Excel file, and I will add another language available on the online questionnaire link. And also, we encourage you to distribute the questionnaire through different platforms, like social media or public events, or directly sending emails to visitors or volunteers. Well, you have all the resources. And if possible, we also encourage you to prepare some small gifts, just like the National Museum of China. But this is, of course, a recommendation. And as we are going to collect all the data with our Survey 123 platform, we also ask you to keep track of the data collection with us. And if you have any questions or issues or suggestions, please feel free to send us an email. So me and Professor Wantzen from University of Tours, and also Heriberto and Elena from Global Network of Water Museums, and Professor Wendy Chen will be later engaged in the data analysis process. But if you have any questions, please, after this webinar, and address them by sending us emails. And yes, and that's all from me. Then I will invite all participants to raise your questions, or we can further discuss about the questionnaire.
Yeah, Edo has already raised his hand. I would say we can try to speak freely as long as we maintain some discipline among us. So no further moderation needed from my side. Please.
Well, probably I'll write to you some emails, but I anticipate some suggestion. Well, I represent 4 eco-museums. They have their own museums, but they are a different conception of museum. They are open-air museums. So I think that to start, just in the general terms, it would be very important to say not the river. Water is very important.
Yes.
Because we have different perspectives of water. My compliments, because the questionnaire is good, obviously, just to not to be misunderstood. I would say that there is canals, there are lakes, fountains. For example, think of Le Cascate delle Marmore. They haven't got a river. Waterfall is something which is the waterfall. And when you get close to it, obviously, it's not as you are getting close to a river. Think of a canal. Ecomuseo Martesana just faces a canal which is 34 kilometers, which comes from the river to the great town of Milan, to the city. So you would have different perspectives and sceneries 200 meters distant from the one to the other. Obviously, there were many comments and sceneries, many responses, but eco-museums would collect these emotions and translate into one, definition. So my invitation is just to say water is very important. And where we could use the term inland waterways, it would be very useful. Otherwise, if a museum hasn't got a river to be addressed to, obviously, it has to look for, a place near the river. So this is a suggestion. First, second, you always use the term citizen. I think this could be misunderstood. I would use, for example, when we are talking about people, residential people, users, and tourists, because there is a great difference among them, among the ones who live close to the river, close to the water, close to the canal, and just the ones who visit water only in some occasions. So I would like to suggest you to use another term, because citizen, urban and rural citizen, it's a generic question. It would give, room to misunderstandings. Well, you don't use the word entertainment when you say, you go for a promenade, meditation. I didn't find the word entertainment. Just to give you an example, there are lakes, now they're artificial lakes, which come from quarries abandoned. But these lakes are very important to the residential, to the people in general. So there is a great visitation of them. Then don't be angry with me, because I want to make it better and better and to be adopted by everyone. Monthly income. But why monthly income? Explain. It's I think it's useless. More and more, and you say that it is anonymous, but I would say it shouldn't be anonymous, because I want to know from whom and from where these observations come. Forgive me, but I wanted to better it, if you like. Suggestions, they are suggestions, and then you would say no, it's traced, we won't change anything, it suits quite well like it is. But I think, but my personal experience of years and years, when we are addressing to people, just to make them participate, we have to find out what are their expectations. I like very much your examples of regeneration, because people could see, and instead of reasoning, so they give a very direct response. For the other things, for me, it is very good. Sorry.
No, thank you. Thank you for all the suggestions. I will quickly respond to the last one about anonymous, because I think if we ask people to provide their, for example, names and other very personal informations, many of them will just do not participate in the questionnaire. And our hope is to have more data collected as possible. So for now, I think we will still have this questionnaire remaining anonymous. And the monthly income is to see, it's actually to have maybe this could be linked to environmental inequality. So when we have all this data collected, we can see if like people with higher income have like different perceptions of the river comparing to people with lower incomes. But this income issue question should be also like country specific, because for example, what you the income you get in Europe is of course different from, for example, in China. So we have to adapt all these answers, all these options, of course. And for the second point about the citizens, I use the word citizens, but in the questionnaire, actually, we don't have the word citizens. We use words like inhabitants, but of course, we didn't differentiate people from, as you said, residents, users, or tourists. We have the first or second question to ask if you live near the river, and we will differentiate in this. It will be later data analysis stage. So we will differentiate participants who live near the river and the participants who consider themselves not living near the river. So we can see if people live the river perceive something differently from the people who consider themselves not close to a river, living close to a river. And for the first question about rivers or other waterways, lakes, canals, I think because this questionnaire we specifically target on the subject of rivers. And I think if we include like all the inland waterways or lakes, could be very complicated because rivers are like flowing waters and lakes will be stagnant waters. And I imagine there will be very different perceptions. But regarding this issue, maybe Professor Wantzen, do you want to add some comments?
The canal are flowing themselves. Canals. I agree with some of your, notes, but I don't agree with the other points, because I made a lot of questionnaires, and I think if the questionnaire should have a sort of validity, people are requested to say who they are. Otherwise, they joke, they play. So I think that if we want to have real responses, valid responses, we should charge the people to give the right answers. But anyway, this is a choice on your own. This is only a remark I just make.
Okay, there are no further comments from my side on this. Are there other contributions to the debate? Currently, no questions or comments. Okay, then, yeah.
I'm the only one. I'm the only one.
You're the only one. No, I think the others are just a little bit, maybe a little bit tired, but also reflecting. The important thing is that we get a first approach to this issue. And I think, remember the short exchange with our Chinese colleague who had unfortunately already left. We will assemble this questionnaire step by step. So this is a first approach, and then we can later on refine it. And I think this is very important that you bear that in mind. This is not the end of the story. It is rather the beginning of it. And we tried to keep the questionnaire widely open because we do not know what are the responses, and we go into these emotional relationships when asking about the childhood, for example, because we are currently encountering a situation in which we have a decline of biological diversity, but we also have a very strong loss of cultural diversity, how people are connected with nature. And we are, so to say, with these very wide open questions, we are throwing a net to the sea, and we hope we can pull out some forms of relationships, and we can also look into the future, how people are wanting to connect or to be connected with their river or with their water body in the future. So we are currently discussing with different cities about a practical construction of these human water encounter sites. So we need to know what people would like to see there. We just had a very negative experience with inadequate communication about water policies in France, where people that were against dam removal, people that wanted to maintain a water mill, for example, or a dam, were very, very active politically, and an existing law to remove obsolete weirs and dams was practically stopped. So the Agence de l'eau, the water agencies, were not allowed to financially support these dam removal actions anymore. And this was the mistake. Why this happened was actually the non-existing communication. So our idea is also to make a kind of survey for the future, how people would like to have their environment. We are specifically talking about urban environment because this is already a man-made and artificial environment. We will not be able to restore a perfect piece of nature in the city. But the question that is behind all our activities is practically how wild do we want or can we get the city again? So how many animal species can go back into the city, and how can we structure it without annoying the people? Yesterday, I heard a talk about Norway and how in Tromsø, the kitty hawks, so these are seagulls, they are now invading the city, and the people are getting annoyed by them because they are making noise. They are stinking when their excrements smell like fish and so on. And how to balance this? The animals are discovering the city as a habitat for them. And on the other hand, we have the interests of the humans. And we have the same with beavers, for example, in parks that are starting to cut the trees in the parks. Yeah, so we have to find this balance. How wild can we get a city, and how can we prepare the human population to accept natural dynamics? Because in the city, humans are controlling everything. Apparently, that's not true, but that's our impression. And then we need to re-establish some natural dynamics in it. We need, in the case of river banks, some erosion, for example. Is it possible to have it? In which parts of the city, and so on. And I think this is very important. And in the end, the people should go to places where they have this good feeling. They feel cozy. They feel at home. They have this relationship. Hugo said this: we should not go too much into detail to maintain a little bit of mystery in our relationships. And so we also there we have to balance not to be too curious, but maybe to just take it as a feedback from the people, yes, this situation gives me a good feeling, and that's what I want. So I want to have a calm soundscape. I want to make Tai Chi on the riverbank, or I want to just sit there and meditate. Or the city in Brazil, a coastal city, they have made a river park, and their specific target for this river park is to create space for inspiration. So the people are sitting there and they can get new ideas, and also to enhance this creativity with this. And so these are some ideas that are behind this questionnaire, and how to make it better for the benefit of nature and for the benefit of human beings.
Thank you, Matthias. Thank you, Yixin. I think we are starting with a very interesting perspective and promises, right, to implement the questionnaire with a growing number of water museums. There was also another message, but no additional questions, I think. So for water museums, the next steps would be, are they going to start more or less from January? What do you expect to do as a next step to finalize also in the questionnaire in all languages that we have planned, and then start from January, from January to June, basically, to collect new data. And what about if any other water museums want to do it at a later stage? That won't be possible. It must be within this frame of time, I guess.
Technically, actually, it's possible, but for our later data analysis stage, we hope this data collection phase can be kept inside this month. But if there are new interests, we can see how we negotiate. And we hope to, because we already have multiple 6 languages available for the questionnaire. So, and I think from now on, if the interested museums can contact us directly to finalize the questionnaire, and we can quickly move to the distribution stage. But this also depends on the museum's availability. And I know, for example, some museums are only open a few months in the year, so we can also see how we can integrate with that.
So we invited, of course, the member of the global network to take part into this exercise. On the other hand, as a UNESCO chair in Venice, we would like also to try to send a letter to a number of museums, water museums, let's call them like this, which are not member of the network, but that could be interested because they are also related to the river. So I'm not sure if we can, how much we can enlarge this at a larger scale to other countries, but for sure we can do it for Italy. So try to involve additional museums that are related to rivers and try to sensitize them to consider these important aspects of relationships with the rivers. That's something that we can do.
Yes.
The recommendation is just to relate to water. Water is the main theme. If we can, because water has different aspects. Water. Water flows, as Leonardo said, in the canals, in the rivers, in the lake as well. in the parks as well, from quarries, water flows. Otherwise, it is a pond. But even the pond have their importance because there are aspects of nature. There are many parks here in Lombardy which are natural reserve, and people go just to be close to water.
Yeah.
Sorry for my insisting on this aspect because I represent 4 eco-museums, and if we consider only a building where a museum is, we are out of perspective. You, Heriberto, knows very well, I am always insisting on eco-museum. I've just come out from a NICHE-Venice, committee where finally they understand that even eco-museums have their importance. Otherwise, the questionnaire wouldn't reach everyone.
So what about this proposal of changing the word river with the water, basically, so that we include a larger number of
Yeah, it is a little bit difficult. We have had a lot of, since the publishing of the river culture paper, the first, we have this debate, and there was a UNESCO project on water culture, and Irene Klaver and different other authors, they have produced a very nice book about this relationship of humans, cultural relationships of humans to water. And this is a very wide topic. So this includes inter alia canalization, irrigation techniques, and highly artificial systems. So on the other hand, of course, we are currently also already working with lakes, with urban lakes. So we have no precise term for water body, the word water body, or the French expression hydrosystème, hydrosystem. They are very artificial. And maybe we can widen it up to rivers and lakes and wetlands somehow. It is we really have this difficulty. If we take water as such, the issue will go too wide. River is too narrow. We are still not very happy with the expressions. But there are some things where we still do not have the right word. I'm also looking for a good word to express the non-human species. I do not want just to define them as being non-human. I recently came up with COPE, citizens of planet Earth, but these would of course also include humans. So we are it's a matter of scale. We do not want to get too large, and we do not want to get too narrow. I see the Edo's critique. It's
what about Matthias, what about the word waterways? In the sense that it's not always easy to understand, at least if you remember also the case study of our contribution in your book, it's almost impossible to understand if a river course is artificial or natural and until what stage, because there has been so many modifications by humans that what you see natural in the end is truly artificial, because behind, like in the Venice Lagoon, you have 2000 years of human interventions. So in case there are specific requests from eco-museums, for example, to consider the word waterway instead of river, so to enlarge a bit this concept.
Waterway is totally artificial. So there are no natural waterways, because the word way already includes the notion that it is made for human transport, and that's
how about trying waterside?
That's it. That's it. It could be.
I
Water
go
side.
to the water side to lose my mind and find my soul.
There is a blues about that. The water. No, but the reasoning is a brainstorming. Then I know you have some legitimate, limits, but let's reason upon this. Because, for example, I made a lot of effort to include the museums in this network, but we should then make profitable for them. Think of a natural reserve. There is a river coming in and there is a river coming out. But obviously the attention is in the reserve about that, the water. For example, you said an artificial. Yes, but there are artificial water sites which are quite natural, because your drawings, when you invite us to make evaluation, and they have been transformed into something which is artificial. Because when you speak of service, entertainment, these are artificials. For example, places where you could land from boats, navigation, soft navigation is a leading theme in Europe. There are a lot of purpose about soft navigation. And I think, for example, you said, people, they are not addressing to artificial, but there are people fishing everywhere where they could do, and they have a relationship with, and they could visit a museum. I think that we shouldn't limit, the people going to live the water sites or to enter the water museums, from the children to the adults. I think we have to think, well, I'm reasoning openly, but otherwise I know you've got some limits. It's very difficult to make a questionnaire. I know. It's very difficult because it could be complete or it could be limited. I know very well. But I think that the results is the comparison of the responses, because from the comparison of responses all over the world, I think we can get an idea of the approach to water, not specific one. I won't talk anymore. I said what I wanted to say. Sorry for my troubling you, but
it's not troubling. It's interesting, but I think we really have to wrap up right now, because we're a little bit running out of time. Okay. But it is really. I think we can maybe, Roberto, this is an idea for another meeting to find a definition of these water sites. I really liked Hugo's suggestion. And we all have already had our reflections about it. If we come to this idea of harmony, it is really difficult to find an expression that is representing, so to say, the joint interests of both, of humans and of non-humans. Yeah, and we are also talking about justice for non-human species. They also have rights to have access to water, and it is also in our personal interest that the life support systems are maintained. So if we do it well for nature, we do well also for ourselves. Not always, of course. If we create ponds in city, we may breed mosquitoes and so on. So this is really a matter that for me, the entire debate ends up with the question: how wild can an urban environment be? Yeah, and that's for me the crucial point. And it is a social debate. It is how society wants to have these places. But we also have this education aspect. And from the ecological point of view or from the sustainability point of view, we have to do much more for nature than before. Most of these sites that we see in cities, they are just beautiful. They are looking nice. And that's actually at the origin of this thing. I have been to Wuhan, and this is a city of the lakes, and everything looks like nice, but everything looks alike. And actually, it is not so good for biodiversity, not so good for ecosystem functions in these places. And how to integrate this? So this will keep us busy for the next years. I'm quite sure. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Matthias. Thank you, Yixin. Congratulations for this interesting questionnaire exercise. Maybe, I don't know, we can discuss at a later stage how to run a parallel questionnaire for semi-artificial water bodies, or, you know, focusing. Everything is ready thanks to the great work done so far by Matthias and Yixin. So thank you very much. I think that we can conclude now, and thank you to all participants. We invite you also to follow the next webinar, which is next Friday, and then the one that I mentioned before, the final one on the 6th of December, which is a Tuesday, that we are going to make. It's an hybrid event. It will be a physical session in Paris at UNESCO at the next UN Water Groundwater Summit. Thank you again to everyone, and I hope to see you very soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye bye. Wonderful.
Bye. Thank you.